Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. The heart monitor flatlined for 3 seconds before the rhythm thundered back, a jagged, violent staccato that mirrored the panic clawing at Julian's throat. It wasn't the blood soaking through his surgical scrubs that made his hands tremble for the first time in his career, nor was it the deafening roar of the storm battering the cliffside clinic, threatening to tear the reinforced glass from its frames. It was the face of the broken, paralyzed man lying on the sterile table, a face Julian had spent 4 agonizing years trying to forget, a face that now looked more like a death mask than the visage of the most feared man in the underworld. "Stabilize him." Julian barked at his terrified nurse, his voice cracking with a command he hadn't used since he was the personal physician to the Draxos crime family. "Push 2 milligrams of epinephrine. Don't let him die. Do not let him die on me." As the nurse scrambled, Julian gripped the edge of the gurney, his knuckles white. He stared down at Cassian Draxos, the alpha, the king of the city, the father of the 4 children sleeping soundly in the wing upstairs, children Cassian didn't know existed. Julian had fled into the shadows to protect them from this man's brutal world, to save them from the crossfire of a succession war. And now, fate, with its cruel sense of irony, had washed Cassian up on Julian's doorstep like a shipwreck, paralyzed, poisoned, and dying. The clinic was a fortress of solitude, perched on the jagged edge of the northern coast. Julian had built it as a sanctuary, a place where the wealthy and desperate came for discreet surgeries, funding the quiet, hidden life he had cultivated for his family. He had thought himself safe here, hidden behind layers of shell corporations and false names. But the underworld had a way of bleeding into everything. 3 hours earlier, a black tactical helicopter had touched down on the helipad in the blinding rain. Men in unmarked gear had offloaded the stretcher, paid in gold bullion, and left without a word, honoring the strict, no questions policy of Julian's practice. They hadn't known who the doctor was. They just knew he was the best. Julian stripped off his bloody gloves and threw them into the biohazard bin. The surgery to relieve the pressure on Cassian's spine had been successful, but the neurotoxin coursing through his system was a different beast. It was a chaotic agent, designed to lock the victim inside their own body, a living rigor mortis. He walked to the sink, scrubbing his hands until the skin was raw. In the reflection of the dark window, he saw a ghost. He looked older than his 28 years. The shadows under his eyes were bruises of fatigue. Raising 4 energetic, brilliant quadruplets alone while running a high-stakes clinic was a task that would have broken lesser men. Dr. Vane, the nurse, Elena, whispered from the doorway. "He's stable. But the paralysis. It's total. His eyes are open, but he can't move. Not even a blink." Julian dried his hands slowly. "Locked in syndrome. The toxin has severed the connection between his motor cortex and his muscles. He can see us, Elena. He can hear us. He can feel every ounce of pain. But he cannot scream." Elena shuddered. "What do we do?" "We wait," Julian said, his voice hollow. "The antidote needs time to synthesize. Until then, he is a prisoner in his own flesh." Julian walked back to the recovery room. It was dimly lit, the only light coming from the bank of monitors. Cassian lay there, a titan brought low. Even in this state, he was beautiful in a terrifying, jagged way. His raven hair was matted with sweat, his jawline sharp enough to cut glass, and his eyes. Julian froze. Cassian's eyes were open. They were a piercing, distinctive violet, a genetic rarity that signaled his lineage. They stared straight ahead, unseeing, yet burning with a silent, impotent rage. Julian approached the bed carefully. He checked the 4-drip, his fingers brushing against Cassian's cold arm. The contact sent a jolt of electricity through him, a phantom echo of nights spent in silk sheets, of whispered promises that turned out to be lies. "You always were too stubborn to die," Julian whispered, his voice trembling. "Who did this to you, Cass? Was it your brother? Or did you finally push everyone away until there was no one left to watch your back?" Cassian's eyes did not move, but the heart rate monitor spiked. "Beep, beep, beep. You can hear me," Julian realized, a cruel satisfaction warring with his heartbreak. "Good. Listen closely. You are safe here. But you are not in charge. You are my patient. Nothing more." He leaned in close, the scent of antiseptic unable to mask the lingering aroma of rain and sandalwood that clung to Cashin's skin. "And you will never know what you lost," Julian murmured, pulling away before he could do something stupid, like kiss the man who had destroyed him. 2 days passed in a blur of medical charts and sleepless vigilance. Julian barely left Cashin's side, monitoring the slow synthesis of the antitoxin. The storm outside refused to break, trapping them in the clinic. On the third morning, exhaustion finally claimed Julian. He had collapsed on the leather sofa in his office, intending to rest his eyes for 5 minutes, only to fall into a deep, coma-like slumber. He was awoken by the sound of giggling. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced his chest. He bolted upright, checking his watch. It was mid-morning. The nursery. The kids. He scrambled out of his office and down the corridor toward the high-security ICU wing. He had locked the door. He was sure he had locked it. But as he approached, he saw the biometric panel flashing green. Authorized access. Julian's blood ran cold. The security system was coded to his DNA. But the quadruplets, they shared 50% of that DNA. And the system, in a glitch of logic he hadn't foreseen, had recognized the chaotic mixture of Julian and Cashin in their blood as authorized personnel. He burst into the room and stopped dead. The sight before him sucked the air from his lungs. Cashin was still lying in the bed, the centerpiece of the room. But he was no longer alone. Perched on the edge of the bed, hanging off the rails, and standing on a step stool were the 4 most precious things in Julian's life. Leo, the eldest by 2 minutes, was wearing a plastic stethoscope, pressing the chest piece against Cashin's pectoral muscle with intense concentration. "Shoo," he hissed at his siblings. "I'm checking the engine. It sounds like a big drum." Sky, the only girl, was carefully placing colorful dinosaur stickers all over the cast on Cashin's arm. "To make him brave," she declared softly, patting the paralyzed hand. "The T-Rex is the strongest." Rain, the quiet one, was holding Cashin's other hand. He was staring intently at Cashin's face, tilting his head. "His eyes are open, Papa," Rain said, though Julian hadn't announced his presence yet. "But he doesn't blink. Is he a statue?" "He's a sleeping prince," Bo, the youngest and most chaotic, announced. He was trying to feed Cashin a plastic grape from his play food set. "He needs magic food." Julian stood paralyzed in the doorway, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He should rush in. He should snatch them away. This man was dangerous. This man was a violent warlord who had conquered the city through bloodshed. But he didn't move. Because he saw the monitor. Cashin's heart rate was elevated, but it wasn't the erratic rhythm of panic anymore. It was steady, strong. And then, Julian saw it. A tear. A single, solitary tear leaked from the corner of Cashin's violet eye, sliding down his temple into his hair. The Alpha, the man who had never shown weakness, who had laughed in the face of torture, was crying. "Why is he sad?" Sky asked, noticing the tear. She reached out with a small, chubby thumb and wiped it away. "Don't cry, Mr. Giant. Dr. Papa will fix you. He fixes everyone." "Yeah," Leo said, removing the stethoscope. "Papa is the best. He made my knee better when I fell." Rain squeezed Cashin's hand. "You have eyes like us," he whispered, a child's observation cutting through the veil of secrets Julian had woven. "Purple eyes. Just like me and Leo and Sky and Bo. Look, Papa. He matches." Julian felt his knees weaken. He stepped into the room, his voice barely a whisper. "Kids, step away from the patient. Now." The authority in his voice was brittle. The quadruplets turned, guilt plastered on their identical faces. "We just wanted to play doctor," Leo said defensively. "You were sleeping. We wanted to help." "He was lonely," Sky added. The machine was beeping sad noises. Julian crossed the room, shepherding them away from the bed. I know you were trying to help. But this man, he is very sick. You can't be in here." He ushered them toward the door, glancing back at the bed. Cashin's gaze had shifted. It was a microscopic movement, barely a millimeter, but he was no longer staring at the ceiling. His eyes were locked on the children. The intensity of that gaze was terrifying. It was a look of hunger, of confusion, and of a dawning, earth-shattering realization. The neurotoxin was fading. The paralysis was breaking. "Go to your room," Julian commanded gently. I'll be there in a minute to make lunch. Go. The children scampered off, a whirlwind of energy and innocence. Julian closed the door and locked it, engaging the manual override. He turned back to the bed. Cashin's eyes snapped to his. The connection was visceral, violent. I know what you're thinking, Julian said, his voice shaking. He walked to the bedside, checking the four. You're wondering who they are. You're wondering about the eyes. Cashin's throat worked. A guttural, choking sound escaped his lips. The first sound he had made in days. D. Julian froze. Don't speak, Julian ordered, though his heart wasn't in it. You'll tear your vocal cords. Did. Cashin forced the air through his paralyzed throat, sheer will battling chemistry. Did? You. Keep them. The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Julian closed his eyes, the pain of the past crashing over him. I didn't keep them from you, Cashin. I kept them safe from you. From your enemies. From the life you chose over us. Mine. Cashin rasped, his eyes blazing with a mix of fury and wonder. Yes, Julian whispered, the secret finally out. They are yours. The quadruplets. 4 of them. God help me. A tremor ran through Cashin's body, his fingers twitched. Then his arm moved. A jerky, uncoordinated spasm. The sight of his children, the revelation of his legacy, had done what modern medicine had struggled to do. It had jump-started his nervous system through the sheer force of adrenaline and possessiveness. They played. Doctor, Cashin wheezed, a grotesque parody of a laugh bubbling in his chest. My sons. My daughter. Yes, Julian said, checking the monitors. And you are terrifying them. You need to rest. The antidote is working. If you force it, you'll have a seizure. No. Cashin growled, the word stronger this time. No. Rest. My brother. He knows. Julian stopped. The blood drained from his face. What? He knows? I came. Here. Cashin forced out, sweat beading on his forehead. Tracker. In my boot. He's coming. The peace of the sanctuary shattered instantly. Julian didn't ask questions. He didn't doubt. Cashin's brother, Lucian, was a psychopath who had long coveted the throne of the syndicate. If he knew Cashin was here, he wasn't coming to visit. He was coming to finish the job. And if he found the children, heirs to the empire he wanted to steal. Elena. Julian screamed into the intercom. Code black. Lockdown. Get the children to the panic room in the basement. Now, he grabbed a scalpel from the tray, a pathetic weapon against a paramilitary hit squad, but it was all he had. He turned to Cashin. I can't move you. You're too heavy and the elevator is too slow. I have to leave you here. I have to get to the kids. Unstrap me, Cashin commanded. His voice was gaining strength with every second, the alpha physiology burning through the toxin. You can't walk, Cashin. Unstrap me. Cashin roared, the sound echoing off the walls. If they are coming for my blood, I will not die lying down. Give me a stimulant. Amphetamine. Adrenaline. Anything. That could kill you. It will stop your heart. Better a heart attack than watching my family die, Cashin snarled, his violet eyes glowing with a demonic light. Do it, Julian, or I will tear these straps with my teeth. Julian looked at the man he had loved. He saw the monster, yes, but he also saw the protector, the father. Julian grabbed a syringe of pure epinephrine. This will hurt. He jammed it into Cashin's thigh. Cashin screamed, his back arching off the bed as the chemical fire flooded his veins. The straps on the gurney groaned. With a sickening crack of dislocated capability, Cashin ripped his right arm free from the restraint. Then the left. He rolled off the bed, crashing to the floor. His legs were dead weight, dragging behind him like lead. But he pulled himself up using the bed frame, sweat pouring down his face, his muscles spasming. Get me a gun, Cashin panted. I'm a doctor, I don't have guns. Julian yelled, helping to hoist the massive man up. Top drawer. Of my belongings, Cashin gritted out. My men. Never. Leave me. Unarmed. Julian ran to the locker where the nurses had stored the patient's effects. Inside the bloody suit jacket, he found it. A sleek, custom pistol. He checked the mag. Full. He pressed it into Cashin's shaking hand. The sound of shattering glass came from the front lobby. Gunfire erupted. Go. Cashin ordered, leaning heavily against the wall, sliding the gun's safety off with a thumb that still trembled. Get to the children. I will holding the hallway. You can barely stand. I don't need to stand. Cashin looked at him, a dark, bloody smile playing on his lips. I just need to shoot. Go. Julian ran. The corridor to the panic room seemed miles long. The lights flickered and died, the storm outside plunging the clinic into gloom. Julian reached the basement door just as Elena ushered the last child, Bo, inside. Papa, Bo cried, reaching out. Get in. Lock the door. Julian shoved them inside and slammed the heavy steel door shut, spinning the wheel. Do not open this for anyone but me or Cashin. Or Cashin. He had said it. He had accepted it. A shadow detached itself from the darkness at the end of the hall. A man in tactical gear, night vision goggles glowing green. He raised a suppressed rifle. Julian had nowhere to go. He pressed his back against the steel door, shielding his children with his body. The assassin fired. Bang. But the shot didn't hit Julian. The assassin's head snapped back, red mist spraying the wall. He crumbled to the floor. Julian gasped, looking past the falling body. At the far end of the hall, dragging himself along the wall, leaving a streak of blood on the pristine white paint, was Cashin. He was on one knee, the pistol held in a two-handed grip that wavered but didn't break. Behind him, 3 more bodies lay in the main corridor. Lucian, Cashin bellowed, his voice raw, echoing through the facility. Come out. Stop sending your dogs. A slow clap echoed from the stairwell. Lucian stepped down, impeccable in a white suit that contrasted sharply with the carnage. He held a heavy revolver. Brother, Lucian smiled. I heard you were a vegetable. It seems the rumors were exaggerated. He glanced at Julian, then at the heavy steel door behind him. And what do we have here? A doctor? And a vault? What are you hiding, Julian? Gold. Drugs. Don't you dare. Cashin growled, trying to stand. His legs buckled, but he forced them straight, the veins in his neck bulging. You touch him, I will flay you alive. So sentimental, Lucian sighed. He raised his gun, aiming at Julian's chest. I think I'll kill the doctor first. Watch the light go out in your eyes. Then I'll open that door and see what's inside. Time seemed to slow. Julian stared down the barrel of the gun. Daddy. The muffled scream came from behind the steel door. It was Sky. The soundproofing wasn't perfect. Lucian froze. His eyes widened. Daddy. He looked at Cashin. You? Bread. The distraction was all Cashin needed. The paralysis was a cage, but rage was the key. Cashin didn't just fire. He launched himself. He pushed off the wall, ignoring the screaming protest of his atrophied muscles. He tackled Lucian as the gun went off. The bullet grazed Julian's shoulder, biting into the flesh, but he barely felt it. Cashin and Lucian crashed to the floor in a tangle of limbs. Lucian was healthy, strong. Cashin was half dead. But Cashin was fighting for something Lucian couldn't comprehend. Lucian landed a punch to Cashin's recovering spine. Cashin roared in pain, but didn't let go. He headbutted his brother, the sound sickeningly loud. He jammed the barrel of his pistol under Lucian's chin. Say hello to father for me, Cashin whispered. Bang. Silence rushed back into the hallway, heavy and thick. Cashin collapsed on top of his brother, the gun clattering from his hand. Cashin. Julian scrambled forward, ignoring his bleeding shoulder. He rolled the heavy alpha onto his back. Cashin was breathing, ragged, wet gasps. He looked up at Julian, his violet eyes hazy. Are they safe? Julian choked back a sob, pressing his hand to Cashin's cheek. They're safe. You saved them. You saved us. Cashin closed his eyes, a faint smile touching his lips. Good. Now, I think. I'll take that nap. 3 weeks later. The sun was actually shining on the coast, a rare occurrence that felt like a benediction. Julian sat on the terrace, watching the lawn. Cashin sat in a wheelchair. A temporary measure, Julian insisted, until the physiotherapy rebuilt his muscle mass. His lap was full. Sky was braiding his hair, which was clean and silky now. Leo was showing him a complex diagram of a robot he wanted to build. Rain was reading a book aloud to him. Bo was asleep, drooling on Cashin's shoulder. Cashin looked up, catching Julian's eye. The darkness that had always shrouded the alpha was still there, but it had softened. It was no longer a void, it was a shield. They have your intelligence, Cashin said, his voice deep and rumbling, fully restored. And my stubbornness. A dangerous combination, Julian agreed, walking over to pour him a cup of tea. Are you going to tell them? Tell them what? Who you really are? What you really do? Cashin looked at the children. He brushed a strand of hair from Beau's forehead. I am a retired businessman, Cashin said firmly, who had a terrible accident. And now, I am going to focus on my investments. Investments? Julian raised an eyebrow. Cashin smirked, that arrogant, dangerous tilt of the lips that had made Julian fall in love with him in the first place. He reached out, grabbing Julian's hand and pulling him down until Julian was perched on the armrest of the wheelchair. My family, Cashin murmured, kissing Julian's palm. The only empire that matters. Julian looked at the man who had once ruled the underworld, now ruled by 4 toddlers and a doctor with a grudge. You have a lot of diaper changes to make up for, Julian warned. Cashin groaned. I'd rather take another bullet. Too bad, Alpha, Julian whispered, leaning in to kiss him. Your shift starts now. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf. If you enjoyed seeing Julian take control and Cashin embrace his new role, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a husband who brought danger to your doorstep, even if he took a bullet to save you? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt. Masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art, dramatic hospital scene. Man 1. Cashin, muscular but injured alpha, lying in hospital bed. Intense violet eyes, sharp jawline, rough stubble, wearing hospital gown. Cast on arm covered in colorful stickers, expression of shock and softness. Children. 4 identical toddlers. Cute. Mixed expressions of curiosity and playfulness, holding toy medical instruments. 1 climbing the bed rails. Man 2. Julian, doctor, handsome omega with glasses, wearing white coat over scrubs, standing in doorway, hand over mouth in shock, messy dark hair. Background is high-tech luxury private clinic room. Rainy window, soft medical lighting, emotional atmosphere, cinematic composition, intricate details.